Building a business and life that blends contribution, fulfillment, and financial reward? Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the show for women in their 40s and beyond who are on this adventure. I'm Angela Rasmus, and I'm delighted you're here. Hello there, and welcome to episode 114 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. Now, today we're going to be exploring the idea of asking yourself better questions to get better results, both in your business and your life in your next chapter. Now, I think it was Tony Robbins who first said that the quality of your questions determines the quality of your results in an entrepreneurial sense. And he's absolutely right. And when I started to dig deeper into this subject, because it fascinated me the way that, our brain can have such an enormous impact on the results that we're seeing in our world, I also came across a woman by the name of Debbie Ford, who is the author of The Right Questions. Great book, huh? And what she said when she was putting this together was that questions supply you with the wisdom you need to make what was previously unconscious conscious, so that you're able to choose with all the power that comes from being fully aware. Now, that's a pretty deep quote, but in essence, what she's saying is that choices become available to us when we have awareness. And that's what this episode is all about. I believe that self-awareness is your superpower. When you start to recognize what's going on, when you are aware of something that needs changing, then you reach that point of potential change. That's what the Your Next Chapter model of change is all about. Step one is discontent. Discontent often shows us that something new is needed. The next step is desire, so it's working out what it is. And then comes decision. Asking better questions can facilitate both recognizing and understanding where the discontent is coming from, and also helping you work out, well, what do we want instead? So this whole episode came about because of a conversation that I had with one of my clients who is recognizing a particular result in her business, and then she's recognizing a behavior that is sitting underneath that. Now, that behavior is good old self-sabotage, something that we all do. But once again, you recognize and have the awareness that there is something that needs to change, then you can take the next steps. Now, the next step to me is about recognizing that it is your thinking that is causing the result, or causing the behavior that leads to the result, and then deciding that you're ready to change that. Okay, because the reality is, and this is something that I believe absolutely, is that your thoughts then create your feelings, your emotions. And those feelings or emotions drive your behavior, your actions, or your inactions, depending on the situation. So if we're not getting a result that we want, if we can look at what we're choosing to think and say to ourselves, if we look at the questions that we are asking ourselves that are actually eliciting those answers, then you can usually find what the problem is. And quite often the answers that we give ourselves become the roadblocks. So some typical examples that can pop up are things like, why is this so hard? And why can't I work this out? And why do I never seem to attract the clients that I want? And why are there so many marketing options that completely overwhelm me? Now, just pause for a moment and see if the flavor of those questions are anything like the way in which you've been questioning yourself. Because the reality is that your brain is a meaning-seeking machine. And when you ask it a question, it goes straight into, well, let me find the answer for you mode. So if you are asking a negative question, a disempowering question like, why is this so hard? Your beautiful brain will tell you why. And my belief of your inner critic who's hanging around in the background and always watching to make sure that you're not stepping out of your comfort zone, it's her voice that often leaps up and answers those questions for you. Why is this so hard? Because you're no good at it and you really should stop trying. Why can't I work this out? Because you haven't got a chance. You shouldn't have started this business. It's too hard for you. Why do I never seem to attract the clients I want? Because you haven't got anything worthwhile to offer. Everyone else has already got it covered, etc., etc. So if you have those sort of thoughts going on in your head, you are so not alone. But we need to look at how we can change them. And that is about changing the questions themselves. So I just want to give you the example of what we were dealing with today with my particular client. Watch the self-sabotaging behavior that she was showing up with was hiding, was stopping her own visibility online. Now, on one side, she was actually showing up when she was prepared to be vulnerable, to talk about the things that weren't going so well in her business, and she felt that honesty and that authenticity was giving engagement, and it absolutely was, because we don't want some guru preaching from a mountaintop telling us about the perfection of their business and life. That can feel uncomfortable. But on the other hand, if that is all we hear, if we only hear about the challenges and the things that are difficult, that does not necessarily engender a faith that you can help. So we must balance that vulnerability and authenticity with also sharing the good stuff that happens. Because absolutely, when we dig under the surface, there is always good stuff that is going on. So my client was finding it really difficult to share the successes, even though she's had some huge ones lately. And because I work with her, and she actually does provide me with services as well, I have first-hand experience of how wonderful her work is. So it doesn't make sense that she's not actually sharing that out in the marketplace. Okay, so that inconsistency of her communication was hurting her brand. Okay, so that's the result that she first noticed, that first stage. The result is I'm not showing up, and it means that I'm not attracting the clients that I want. Now, there could be lots of different reasons why a particular result is happening. And it really depends on your personal situation. We're talking specifically about visibility here. So I can look at the way that she was questioning herself as being a reason for this result. But obviously there can be lots of different reasons, but I want to focus on this one for you today. Now, there was a clear indicator in our conversation that this is the problem, because the words coming from her mouth were, why do I always do this? Why can't I show up? Why can't I walk my talk? What's wrong with me? And as you can hear, those questions are disempowering. And those answers, as I mentioned before, when her inner critic comes dancing onto the scene, she absolutely had the roadblock answers that were going to keep my clients stuck. Now, I believe you need to have unconditional positive self-regard when you're working with yourself. And so many of us are. We spend so much time in isolation working on our businesses by ourselves. And so that unconditional positive self-regard is all about encouraging yourself. Okay? It's, yes, be realistic, but don't beat yourself up. So those sort of questions, the way that she was questioning herself, were in the opposite direction. They weren't supportive and expansive. So we needed to look at how can we ask better questions, because now that she's got that awareness, we can change them. So some of the questions that we came up with were, how can I show up online today? Nice and simple. What's something I'm excited about that I can share? What would be interesting for my audience? What would be valuable for my community? What can I teach someone today? What lesson can I share? What can I celebrate today? Now, just pausing for a moment, see the huge contrast between the type of questions that we were asking there, and therefore the type of answers that your beautiful brain will supply you with. Straight away, when we started looking at those questions and my asking them of my client, the brain came up with some fantastic answers and results. Okay, straight away, the energy started, the lightening up started, the ideas were flashing around. There is so much more that's going to happen where she can actually change that behavior of hiding, of self-sabotaging. So I want you to do the same thing. If you're recognizing that there is a result you're not happy with, and if you look at your thinking and find that the questions you're asking yourself are actually disempowering and have the possibility of becoming roadblocks, then we need to flip the questions. Okay. So after you've asked better questions of yourself, you've recognized that, you need to make the decision that you're going to change this behavior going forward. Now, a decision statement is something that is pretty easy to put together, and I really encourage you to do so. So just an example of when you've decided, this is an example of it being more visible, that decision to become a lighthouse for the people who need you. That was the case for my client. And creating an anchor statement to support that intention. It's something along the lines of, this is as simple as, I'm going to become more visible in the market so your client are able to, your solution, because of your passion. Now, another example here, just to make that come alive, I'm going to become more visible in the market so more women who are neglecting their health are able to become fit, flexible, and strong with my help. I know this is what I'm here to do, and I'm 100% committed to making a difference. So that's an example of a decision statement. And if that is something that you can create for yourself, I really want you to print that out and have it visible, no pun intended. Because once that decision to become visible is made, you move on to the next step. And this one's a biggie, but it's pretty simple. It's take action today. Take a small step in that new direction. If visibility is the thing that you are struggling with here and asking the better questions gives you a better result, making that decision to show up and taking a small action today begins to galvanize your commitment. Now, again, maybe different depending on what your scenario is, but taking an action today, once you've recognized that asking better questions gives you better answers, will start to put you in a whole new direction. Because that awareness is the pivot point of change. And that's what I want for you. Now, there's a few extra useful resources that I've got if this is the particular challenge for you. One of them is the importance of a fabulous file. And if you're in my world, you'll hear me talking about this all the time. Now, that fabulous file helps galvanize your action and helps you ask better questions because it is evidence of the positive impact that you have on the world. So episode 111, is all about the fabulous file. And there's also a blog post on my website about it. Another thing that will help you show up more intensely, for want of a better description, is to have clarity on your vision and purpose and mission. Now, that decision statement that I gave you before is an example of someone who knows what they're here for. So episode 110 has a great download where you can actually create that purpose, vision, and mission statement. So by all means, pop back and listen to it, but you can also download the workbook, which is angelarasmus.com/110 download. Clarity on that vision helps you take action. And the last one, if visibility is the thing, then I do have a workbook for that as well, which is angelarasmus.com/visibility. Now, the last thing that I discovered at the moment was within Debbie Ford's book, there are 10 awesome questions that she asks you or suggests that you ask for the bigger picture of your life. And I'd love to share those with you now as well. We've looked today so far at very specific questions, the ability for you to recognize the negative, disempowering question you're asking yourself, the one that closes down your thinking. And we've looked at how you can flip that and turn it into a more expansive question. But those are for specific things that are happening in your business. Let's look at some bigger picture questions, and I will make sure that these are on the show notes so that you can grab them as well. But I just want you to pause and consider each of these for a moment wherever you are. So, will this decision and choice propel me toward an inspiring future, or will it keep me stuck in the past? Number 2, will this decision and choice bring me long-term fulfillment, or will it only bring me short-term gratification? Number 3, am I standing in my power with this question or decision, or am I trying to please another person? Number 4, am I looking for what's right, or am I searching for what's wrong? Number 5, will this decision or choice add to my life force, or will it rob me of my energy? Number 6, will I use this situation and choice as a catalyst to grow and evolve, or will I use it to beat myself up? Little asterisk here, that one is my favorite, because when things don't work out the way that we want, we can choose to beat ourselves over the head with that, and that will negate your growth at all. Or you can go with that unconditional positive self-regard and use the situation as a learning point, as a catalyst for growth. So I think that number 6 is probably my favorite question of all time. Okay. Number 7, does this decision or choice empower me, or does it disempower me? Number 8, is this an act of self-love, or is it an act of self-sabotage? Number 9, is this an act of faith, or is it an act of fear? And the last one, number 10, am I choosing from my divinity, or am I choosing from my humanity. That's about making elevated choices as well. So, my darling, there are so many questions that you can ask yourself. We are constantly in our own head. I mean, we're there 100% of the time. We are always present with ourselves. So becoming really conscious of the way in which you speak to yourself has always been a real focus of mine. I know for sure that when I stepped into that more unconditional positive self-regard and started speaking to myself with far more encouragement, kindness, and self-compassion, I grew, and absolutely my business did as well. So this awareness, this ability to be kind to yourself and to ask you questions that expand you rather than crush you down, that is the secret of you making changes in your next chapter. So I really encourage you to take the time today to be aware of those questions and to start flipping them around so that you begin to create the feelings that allow you to take the actions that will create the results that you're looking for in your next chapter. So I hope this was thought-provoking, and of course, no pun intended, if you have any questions, then come along to the Your Next Chapter community. You'll find us on Facebook. Just go in there and Google Your Next Chapter community. There's a couple of questions, that seems to be the flavour of this conversation, that I ask as you're joining the group, and then I'd love to have a conversation with you there. It's a community of women who are on this same path, who are expanding into their next chapters. And I like to think of it as a bit of an oasis online. So I'd love to see you in there and hear about the questions that you've decided to start asking yourself. So until next time, take very good care. I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. I really do appreciate your time. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And of course, my website, angelarasmus.com. If you enjoy the show, I'd love you to share it with another woman who's in the midst of business and life beyond 40. And if you love it, a review on iTunes or whatever app you listen in on would be fabulous. Reviews somehow impact that deeply mysterious algorithm and make it easier for the show to be found, which is always a good thing. So thanks again, and until next time, take care.